Recently, I shared a straightforward message on X about what I believe to be a core element of George Lucas's Star Wars. The reaction it sparked online was both surprising and honestly a little disheartening. Despite being accustomed to the usual personal attacks and vitriol that can follow even the simplest statements posted on social media, I was taken aback by the sheer volume of unreasonable pushback this post received. What did I say to cause such a stir? Simply, the Jedi are the good guys. The end. Along with this post, I attached a clip of Luke Skywalker at the end of Return of the Jedi, stating affirmatively, "I am a Jedi, like my father before me." What I found to be a common thread among the complaints about this post is the belief that my view is overly simplistic. It's apparent that most of the accounts who responded negatively are uncomfortable accepting the notion of Star Wars as a classic good versus evil tale, with the Jedi and the Sith representing these two sides respectively. Instead, they see the Jedi as morally flawed to the point where the classification as good guys doesn't apply, with some laughably even equating the Jedi and Sith in terms of morality. To directly address the increasingly common sentiment that Star Wars lacks a clear dichotomy of good and evil at its core, I think it's best to consider the words of its creator, George Lucas, who said, "The secret, ultimately, which is the bottom line in Star Wars, is there are two kinds of people in the world, compassionate people and selfish people. Selfish people live on the dark side. The compassionate people live on the light side. If you go to the side of the light, you will be happy because compassion, helping other people, not thinking about yourself, thinking about others, that gives you a joy that you can't get any other way. Being selfish, following your pleasures, always entertaining yourself with pleasure and buying things and doing stuff, you're always going to be unhappy. You'll never get to the point. You'll get this little instant shot of pleasure, but it goes away and then you're stuck where you were before. The more you do it, the worse it gets. You finally get everything you want and you're miserable because there's nothing at the end of that road. Whereas if you are compassionate and you get to the end of the road, you've helped so many people." This motif of good versus evil resonates deeply with many, making several classic stories incredibly popular. J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings is another prime example of this. People love rooting for heroes who overcome immense challenges to defeat villains intent on causing suffering and oppression. While many would accept that Star Wars contains this motif, the reactions to my post that the Jedi consistently represent the good side of this dichotomy is where many disagreed. There are a few reasons that I've seen given for this disagreement that I'll now outline and reply to. One reason why some refused to accept seeing the Jedi as the good guys was due to their organizational flaws and collective hubris in the prequels, which led to their downfall. Some critics highlight that the Jedi brought young Padawans into battles during the Clone Wars, or falsely claim that the Jedi kidnapped children to train them. Critics also point to the few examples of individual Jedi who strayed from the Jedi way, many of whom completely fell to the dark side. One example often cited is Anakin Skywalker's massacre of the Tusken Raiders who captured his mother. Most would agree this instance shows Anakin straying from the Jedi way and giving in to his emotions. Using this as evidence that the Jedi are not the good guys is an exception rather than the rule. Anakin's actions demonstrate his deviation from Jedi principles, not a reflection of the Jedi's ethos. If ruthless killing were common among the Jedi, this argument might hold water. However, the evil deeds of Jedi who fall to the dark side cannot be used to argue that the Jedi as a whole are not morally superior. In regards to the idea that the Jedi of the prequel trilogy are somehow supposed to be perceived as anything other than the good guys, it's simply not the case. In commenting about the Jedi Order during the era of the prequel trilogy, George Lucas said of the Jedi, quote, "They are the most moral of anybody in the galaxy. They're monks. The Sith practice the dark side and are way out of balance. The Jedi aren't as much out of balance because they're the light side of the Force. They still have the bad side of the Force in them, but they keep it in check. It's always there, so it can always erupt if you let your guard down. The Emperor snookered the Jedi with Order 66. The nascent rebellion and the Jedi didn't move fast enough." This straightforward statement debunks the notion that the Jedi were not meant to be the good guys throughout George Lucas's 6-film saga. They were unequivocally the good guys, promoting the light side, the good side of the Force, striving to ensure it guided and balanced their lives and the lives of other Force-sensitive beings. While some criticize their practices and rightly point out their flaws, the fact remains that the Jedi were warriors of the light, fighting and ultimately falling against the forces of darkness in the prequels. Another side of resistance to this tweet came from those who thought that I was trying to assert that the Jedi are perfect and flawless. This one is easy to dismiss, as being a good person doesn't mean that you don't have flaws or make mistakes. Rather, the good guys, the heroes, the protagonists of the Star Wars films, which encompasses and extends beyond the Jedi to characters like Han Solo, are shown struggling with the good and bad within themselves, and ultimately, the good triumphs, which makes them the good guys. Another major complaint about my post stems from the clip of Luke at the end of Return of the Jedi. Some fans argue that Obi-Wan and Yoda sent Luke to kill Darth Vader while keeping him ignorant of Vader's true identity, and that this cuts against the idea that the Jedi are the good guys. They claim Luke defied the Jedi's anti-attachment doctrine and redeemed Anakin in the process. However, the Jedi's stance on attachment is about avoiding possession and obsession, which Anakin failed to do. The Jedi can still love, as evident when Obi-Wan told Anakin he loved him. As Yoda taught Luke, a Jedi never seeks to attack. Instead, he only uses the Force for knowledge and defense. Thus, Luke hesitates to confront Vader because it might mean killing him in defense. The idea that Obi-Wan and Yoda ordered Luke to kill Vader simply isn't true. Nowhere is it spoken by either Jedi Master that Luke must kill Vader. Instead, Luke is urged to confront and face Vader, which brings the possibility of Luke having to kill his father if needed in defense. Obi-Wan and Yoda want Luke to be prepared for that possibility, but instead, Luke initially seeks to avoid the confrontation altogether. Even if Luke had killed Vader in defense, this would still be morally justifiable. The Empire is famously known as an allegory for Nazi Germany, making leaders like Palpatine and Vader comparable to Hitler and his generals. Therefore, in this scenario, killing Vader would still be motivated by morally good inclinations, as he is an intergalactic war criminal. That being said, if Luke were to strike and kill Vader out of anger, this certainly would be a departure from the Jedi teachings and lessons given to him by Yoda. Specifically, the cave test on Dagobah, where Luke saw what he would become if he were to do so. In the throne room, Luke begins to stray from his Jedi teachings and comes dangerously close to striking down Vader out of anger, not out of defense. However, in remembering his training and being moved by the compassion that flows from the light side, he stops short of killing his father in this way. It is in this moment that he throws his weapon away and affirms his status as a Jedi, thus cementing the moral superiority of their order over the Sith. At the end of the day, it's clear that George Lucas intended for the Jedi to represent the good in his Star Wars universe. The simplicity of good versus evil is a foundational aspect of the saga, resonating with countless fans who appreciate the timeless struggle between light and dark. While the Jedi are not without flaws, their overarching mission and values align with the forces of good. The criticisms that highlight individual failures or missteps do not diminish the Jedi's role as the heroes of this epic saga. Moreover, the backlash to my post underscores a broader debate within the Star Wars fandom about the nature of morality and heroism in the series. It's important to remember that the presence of nuance and complexity within characters and storylines does not negate the fundamental good versus evil narrative. The Jedi, despite their imperfections, strive to uphold justice, peace, and compassion, qualities that firmly place them in the light and on the side of good. Or, to put it simply, the Jedi are the good guys. The end. But I'm curious to know what you think of this debate about the morality of the Jedi. Do you feel there are any valid arguments that can be made against this statement? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, and be sure to subscribe for more sci-fi and fantasy news and lore. And if you're looking for other ways to show your appreciation, you can check out my Patreon page, where members get access to exclusive content and perks. Thank you all so much for your support, and as always, have a very nerdy day.